Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I want to talk a little bit about keeping your guard up. I know I've talked about this before, but this is something that I need to revisit, and you guys need to think about on a semi-reoccurring basis, because what will happen is you'll get into this normal, your new norm, and you'll think you have everything figured out, and you think that your situation, I guess, makes sense, and you're making progress, and you get comfortable in this the new situation, or your new perception of the situation. And what can happen, and one of the situations that I've found myself in recently, is you think you're making progress, you think you're having an understanding with your kids, which you are, but sometimes we forget that this still isn't a one-sided experience. What I mean by that is, if you get to the situation where you're having conversation with your kids and you think that you're making progress, you need to be very cautious about how you proceed that way, and you also need to keep your eyes open on what's happening. And I mentioned this in the video a couple days ago, where I think that I got complacent in what was going on. I felt that I was making good progress. But what happened is, in my opinion, and maybe I'll be able to verify this, I'm not sure, I think that my oldest has been having these more confrontations with his mom, sorry. And as a result of that, she's adapted. Now, I've talked about this before, that no matter what you do, you should anticipate that your ex is going to modify their approach. Previously I've talked about this in the idea that if you do something, like let's say you go hybrid no contact, or you switch how you're dealing with them. That, or if you catch them in something, you can't expect that they're going to cower in the corner, your ex, and think, oh my God, the other person's won, I just don't know how I can go on, and not continue to modify their approach. So I think what's been happening is, I think that my son's been pushing his mom in the eye, and she's ramped back up her smear campaign and dropping little covert hints about how I am. And there's been some things that have been going on that I've kind of talked about, with like sabotaging events and trying to insert herself, but she's able to do it in such an excellent way. I'm trying to think of the right way to say it, but to insert herself into it, to make it seem like it's not a big deal. And if it gets under my skin, then if I have an interaction with my son, then it validates the seeds that she's trying to plant. I've seen this a lot with my other kids, where something will happen, where they will tell, this happened last year, where what we're planning on doing gets told to their mom. She does something to basically sabotage what we were going to do. And then when the kids come back, it's almost like you just have to smile and let it go, because last year, whenever I made a comment about it, the initial response was, well, it's not a competition, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? It's that type of thing. So the kids have been primed, basically, not even realize that they've been armed to walk into this environment and be a surrogate for their mom. And I think what happened with my son is, there's some situations that happened recently where it was a little frustrating. I actually was doing okay with it, but there were some external in-sources that were kind of influencing me, saying, that's wrong, aren't you upset about that, aren't you upset about that, aren't you upset about that, where I initially was following my own process, my own hybrid no contact, and it's like, okay, she did something, I don't care, move on and just move it out of my mind. Well, the problem is external influences were pulling it back into my mind. Then when I interacted with my son, I was irritated about it and hyped up about it, and then I responded to it, right? Which then created a conflict with my son, which sent everything in a downward spiral. And it took me a couple of days to take a step back and look at it and realize, damn, I've just been played. I fell off the track of my own technique and allowed myself to get goat roped back into the drama. And guys, you know that this stuff is incredibly hard. So I mean, that's why I talk about absolute thinking. That's why I talk about black hole thinking. That's why, you have to keep yourself consistent. You have to keep yourself, stable and not allow it to any of this crap to creep back in. And if it does, it slowly chips away at your ability to be objective about things. And that's what happened to me, right? So when my son, came back last week and he's like, hey, I want to show you this. And I didn't really want to see it. And it was basically an ID. It's stupid. It was an ID. It was, he got not a driver's license, but he got an ID. I was going to take him to do it. We were talking about doing it. He mentioned it to his mom. They miraculously went and did it. And, so he was excited about it. I was frustrated by it because, for one thing, I had mentioned it and I was hoping, I was thinking we were going to do it. Two, it's like, I know he mentioned it to his mom and his mom just miraculously decided that it was a good idea. And, so then three, here I am frustrated about it. And now it's bringing back all those old memories from all the other experiences I've had, not primarily so much with him, but with the other kids. And it just created this situation that wasn't great. And then when I finally tried to talk to him about it, I asked him at one point, I said, okay, so did you talk about this with your mom? Before? Did this come up before? Well, yeah. I'm like, really? Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You never said we were going to do it. And it's like, and see, that's what I'm talking about. These folks are able to take nuances and gray areas and basically kind of like legalese it to where they can figure out how to how it's okay to do it. So, and this has happened. This is the second time this has happened where something has happened where it's like 95% obvious that we had a plan. The kids mentioned it to their mom. Their mom then did it before we had a chance to do it. And it's, it's really frustrating, right? And if you've experienced this, then you know what I'm talking about. But so I think what's happened is, and this is the second time it's also been said, it says, well, you brought it up, but you never said we were really going to do it. So, kind of like when Mommy asked if you're going to do it, we said, well, we don't know. We're just talking about it, right? So there's the end. We never said we were going to do it. Or I never said we were going to do it, so it was like, well, that meant we weren't necessarily going to do it, so that meant it's okay. I mean, I'm kind of laughing about it, but it's not. You have to get to the point to where the ridiculousness of it and the silliness of it is, you don't lose sight of that. The problem is whenever you get angry about it and you get frustrated about it and you get, just angry, nothing good comes from that, right? Because it sets up, then you're being triangulated against with your kids. Your ex is still able to figure out how to push your buttons, and the whole goal is to try to ruin the relationship with your kids. And we're an active participant in it, guys. It's really crazy and it's hard to wrap your head around, but they're pushing buttons, your ex is pushing buttons, your ex is getting your kids to push buttons, and then you're reacting to it in a negative way that just complicates everything. And every time one of these situations happens, every time you fall trap to this, it sets back your relationship with your kids. Now, one of the big problems with it is your ex is either directly or indirectly going to be trying to paint you, to smear you into a certain category, okay? And when that happens, and then you do something like this, like I just said I did, then you validate what your ex is trying to plant in your kids, and that is devastating, and it creates a lot of problems, and it sets you back. And that's the situation where I'm in now. So I gotta do damage control. When the kids come back this week, I have them for this is the long weekend I have them. So I'm going to have to try to fix that, to try to get things back on track and get the momentum going again. And okay, so to wrap this back up in the first part of the video, and it's really frustrating, but you constantly have to have your guard up. You don't necessarily have to be paranoid about it to the point where it's causing you more anxiety, but you do need to be aware of the fact that your ex is just not going to roll over. They are not going to just say you won and just continue down their destructive path. I mean, they will continue down their destructive path, but they are going to try to modify it to regain control. And it's not even so much that I think that in this situation she's trying to trying to necessarily directly hurt me. She's trying to manipulate the kids right now. And so guys, just you got to be vigilant. You have to keep your eyes open. You have to anticipate these things and try to catch it when you're doing it. So if you find yourself, okay, so here's the key. If you find yourself frustrated by something, and especially if it has to do with the kids, you need to take a step back, recognize it, and go, oh crap, I'm falling victim to this. I see what's happening, and I need to reel myself back in to prevent myself from going down the deep end or going off the rail or over the cliff or however you want to say it. Because every time you do, it sets everything back. It doesn't mean you can't recover from it, but you lose that momentum. And unfortunately, our kids are going to be constantly testing us to try to figure out who's telling the truth, who's lying, and the same way that us in the early stages of this really have a hard time figuring out or reconciling what's going on, it's the same with our kids, right? Except we know, right? We know what we know, right? And there are times early on where you're still going to be questioning, like, well, maybe I'm reading this wrong. Your kids are going to go through the exact same thing, except worse, because they're still stuck in the middle of it, and they're going to be testing. And unfortunately, we have to have our game face on. We have to be 100%. I mean, we can't be 100% all the time, but we need to strive for that with them, because every time we lose it, every time we fall for the trap, every time we take the bait, they're going back going, oh, well, I thought Daddy was this way, but man, he did this, and that falls back in with this and with the way he was before or whatever. And it doesn't take much to start setting things back. So try to recognize that. Try to keep your eyes open for it, so that when you see it, when you can, and hopefully you can detect it while it's happening, so you can take a pause right then and there and do something about it right then and there. All right, so if you've had experience with this and you want to share out how you've been able to deal with it, please put that in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe, which is, I think, a button over here for that. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.